Hi Dylan, I'm here with Cosmo instead of Lewis today. But yeah, we're gonna get started with this video. He was barking during take one, so we're gonna try again with him in here with me. So today I think I want to start with a response to your response, because what you had to say was really thought-provoking and it helped me think a little more critically about that story of the farmer and the horse. And I want to continue that discourse here and provide some thoughts of your thoughts about the thoughts in that story. I think I would say today, this is where I'm at today, I think that I would say suffering isn't a moral good. And yes, there's all sorts of benefits to suffering, but I think what's good about suffering is how you respond to it, how you can honor God through it, and how you maintain joy and perseverance and all these other things. And being able to display those in the face of suffering is what's morally positive. So to say that we should seek out suffering, I don't think is necessarily true. To say that avoiding suffering is wrong, I don't think is necessarily true. It's probably often true because you have to consider the cost of avoiding pain. I think there's always a price to avoiding pain. Well, maybe not, but I think often there is, and that price is missing out on the benefits of building up your perseverance and resilience and trust and the opportunity to be a witness through all of that. And if you avoid the suffering, then yeah. But I think going through suffering and maintaining a good attitude isn't the same as avoiding suffering. I think detachment is just a technique, a reframing technique, just as the tragic optimism. It's just a way of reframing it. Be like, yeah, this might suck, but it also might not. Who am I to say? I think that's more of a perspective and a reframing thing rather than an attachment thing. I think you can be deeply attached to things, and I think you should, because only with deep attachment can you feel the deep joy and deep love and things. And then when it's time for those things to leave your life, I think it's appropriate to grieve, but I don't think that necessarily comes with moping around and being like, oh, woe is me, I'm suffering so hard. I think that is the opportunity to display the things that are the moral good that I was just talking about, to display perseverance and strength and resilience, and even just wisdom in seeking comfort from your support system, and the wisdom of navigating grief in a God-honoring way. Those are the things that matter. It's not suffering in itself, I would say. And yes, there's the fact that Jesus suffered, and we can learn to be like Jesus through our suffering. But I think it's the secondary things that come with the suffering that are the good things, the Christ-like things. I think if we go to the extent of the self-flagellating monks who would whip themselves and crawl, I don't even know, they would do all sorts of ascetic things, and I don't think that's good. I think that's taking it too far, because that's suffering for the sake of suffering, and I don't think that's a faithful interpretation of what the scriptures have to say about it, or just a wise approach to life. So that was one thought about all of that. Let's see if I had anything else. How do I open this? I don't use this iPad for anything except for recording these videos. So yeah, I think detachment doesn't necessarily equal not suffering. I think you can suffer and acknowledge that and still try to detach in the way of giving it up to God. Is that detaching? I don't know, being like, hey God, this is yours. Maybe that is detachment, but I feel like that's a more spiritually appropriate way to handle it than just the Buddhist detachment, having no attachment. I think giving things to God is an appropriate thing to do. I think when it comes to alleviating suffering as the role of the church, I think that's pretty much right on. But, or wait, no. Helping others, you said, as the role of the church. And maybe that helping others looks like helping them navigate suffering and finding the value in their suffering. The value, again, is those like secondary things that come with suffering. And I think that's all well and good, but alleviating suffering of others and alleviating your own suffering are different things. I don't think either are wrong, but it should be done wisely, right? If there's two options to do something and all else are the same, maybe choosing the harder thing would teach you something, but maybe it's just suffering for the sake of suffering. And like I said with the monks and stuff, I don't know if that's exactly right. Anyway, I think I'm just gonna move on from that because I feel like I'm sort of talking in circles at this point. I would love to hear you retell the story of Darth Plagueis. I'll just leave that there. You definitely should send me the sheet music for that song. I think it would be fun to even have me record a version of that in my music room and have that for maybe the paid subscribers. I don't know. Now to respond to what you actually had to say about your lyric, I think that was good, about praising the Lord, serving the Lord. I think we should reflect on how our life is organized and whether we have designed our lives to be like optimized to serving and praising God, or whether our lives are designed around other things. If it's a self-centered designed life, or I don't know, music, and anything that becomes an idol, I think would be anti to this idea in the song that you were talking about, like even through the night and everything. So the measure that I like to think about with all of that is, what do my bank statements and my calendar reveal about my priorities? And I think that's just a good way to practically have something to look at when you're asking yourself how your life is designed and whether or not it's all about serving and praising God. So yeah, anyway, I want to get into a speech, and of course, again, I have a hard time with speeches because, I don't know, a lot of them just seem a little bit uninteresting to me. But I did find a short speech from our boy, Brandon Sanderson, who you are currently reading, and I am a big fan of. And I shared a story of his previously in this series, and now I want to share a speech of his. And the speech is called Why Fantasy? And I think it's a good question because this whole modern quest has dipped its toes into talking about fantasy at several times, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Cosmo, can you lay down? Lay down, buddy. Brandon Sanderson's works, or anything like that. And to reflect on the virtues or the benefits of that genre, I think is wise. And let's see what Brandon has to say. He says, why fantasy? I got this question for the first time when I was doing a book signing, and a mom came up to me after I signed some books for her young daughter. The mom said, not to be offensive, but why do you guys like this stuff? I can't figure it out. It's not realistic. Why fantasy? And I've thought about this a lot because it's not insulting to ask me why I like it. This mother really genuinely wanted to learn. The more I've thought about it, the more the question has been to me, why not fantasy? You see, I feel like fantasy as a genre can do anything. And in fact, it is the only genre that can do anything. As soon as you include some fantastical elements, you belong to us. And we have a very large umbrella, and we like to have lots of people underneath it. As soon as you add something fantastical, you're ours. And this is great. This means that you can find fantasy literary styling as great as the great literary classics. You can find a romance as powerful and passionate as anything in the romance genre. You can find a mystery as intriguing as any mystery, and it's all fantasy. So I ask myself, what do I love about fantasy? It's the sense of discovery. It's the sense of adventure. I think fantasy is crunches for your imagination. We all want the world to be a better place. We might disagree on how to get there, but we all want it to be better. And fantasy books, at least for me, allow me to imagine a different world. It allows me to imagine a world that was a better place. And every development that's happened in humankind's history has happened because someone dared to imagine something better. We can fly because someone imagined a fantasy, right? Flying under your own power in the air, that's not possible. It didn't exist. But someone imagined it was possible, and several someones made it a reality. Things have been rough lately in our country, but we're getting better because some people had dreams that we could be a better society. And they start as dreams, they start as a fantasy, and then become reality. When I read a fantasy book, I see through someone's eyes, particularly when I see through the eyes of someone very different from myself. I think it helps me understand the world better, understand them better, and I can imagine a better world. So fantasy is crunches for our imagination, and we can do anything in this genre anyone else can do. Plus, we have dragons. So why not? Why wouldn't we write and read fantasy? It is the best genre out there. It is the most open and inclusive genre out there, and it has dragons. So that's what Brandon has to say about why fantasy. And it makes me reflect about why I like fantasy. And often it is the case that I just really enjoy narrative storytelling, and I think it's a really powerful way to communicate and get deep meaning across. But that's just narrative storytelling. So why exactly fantasy? And I think fantasy's biggest strength is its immersion, right? Being able to feel like you're in a different world, being able to put yourself in some realm that's totally alien to your own existence. And I think that's desirable, but I struggle with knowing whether or not that's escapism. Because to me, escapism seems kind of bad. Like, is it weak to try to escape the troubles of your life? Or should you face them straight on and figure them out? I don't know. I think I still enjoy fantasy, and I don't think it's wrong. Maybe if you are facing the things in your life that are hard honorably, then enjoying the fantastical worlds of these fantasy novels isn't a bad thing. But if you're using it as a way to cope, and as a way to avoid, and a way to escape, then maybe there's some work to do. I don't know. I think having a way to cope isn't a bad thing if what you're going through is truly hard. But if it's something you should be facing and you're not facing, then there's an issue, I think. So that's kind of where I'm at with fantasy. I really like it. I love it. I love anything with swords and dragons and magic and wizards and stuff like that. I'm like, yes, thank you. Please give me more. Even if it's not, a perfectly written story. I'm like, all right, same thing with most things. I'll be like, sure, the Star Wars sequels weren't great, but they're lightsabers, they're spaceships, I'm down. I'm having a good time. Um, so maybe I'm just easy to please, but that's where I'm at today. Those are my thoughts about all sorts of things. Let me know if you have any thoughts about my thoughts about thoughts about thoughts, and I hope to hear from you soon. All right, thank you.